This is where we find Simon Peter in his life. It's Friday. God has already told him, you're gonna fail me. And he does. He says, I'm not going to, but he does. He makes radical mistakes. I mean, I don't know how many of you have denied Christ. Maybe you've made some mistakes, but probably not just denied Christ. Like you've been with him and then you're like, no, I don't even know the man. Like he walked with him and said, I don't even know the man. And now everything that Jesus said would happen. You'll deny me before the rooster crows. You'll deny me 3 times. And he does. It's absolute failure. Let me ask you a question. What do you do with failure? What do you do when you thought it was gonna turn out different? What do you do when you thought you would do well, when you thought you would do good, and it blows up in your face? What do you do when your home life is not the way that you thought it would be? What do you do when relationships don't turn out the way that you wanted them to? What do you do when your faith falters and you promised that it wouldn't? What do you do 2 weeks from now when you've checked your circle and you've made all the faith declarations and you still mess up? What do you do then? Do you quit? Here's what I would tell you. Don't look at what you see. Remember what Jesus said. Here's what he said before this. Look at me. Let me let you in on a little clue. He already knows you're gonna make a mistake. He already knows. Like he knows the day, he knows the time, he can predict it. He looks at Simon Peter and says, hey, look, you're gonna fail me, not once, not twice, but thrice. It's King James Version. Before the end of the day. And Simon Peter's like, not me, I'm your boy, I'm your ride or die. All these other suckers will leave you and I'll be there. I'm family, Jesus. I got the shirt, I got a tattoo, I got the whole thing. I'll cut somebody. And yet he fails. And he's looking squarely at his failure. I wonder how many of you look at me. I wonder how many of you are looking at your failure right now. And you hear Pastor Chris deliver such a masterful message today. That's something you need to go back and listen to over and over and over again. I am forgiven. I am healed. I am called. I am blessed. And here's why. You have to remember what God said, not just what you see. Here's what Jesus says before Simon Peter's failure. Luke chapter 22, verse 31. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, indeed, Satan has asked for you. This is the weirdest thing, that he may sift you as wheat. And then Jesus makes a declaration. He says, but I have prayed for you. Now then he prays a very non-religious prayer. Like if I was gonna pray for you and I knew that you were gonna fail, I would pray something like this. Oh, brother, I pray that thine would not embarrass the family of God anymore. Stop thine failure. Buck up and be a man of God. Release the stupidity. Real preacherly prayer. I pray about angels and seraphims, and when Jesus says, I prayed for you that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, strengthen your brethren. He predicts his failure and he predicts the comeback. So here's what I want you to understand. When you make a mistake, God keeps making mercy. His mercy endures forever. Great is thy faithfulness. So don't let the enemy rub your mistake in your face. Tell him it ain't over until God says it over, and I'm gonna come back from this. Here's why. Your failure is never final. With Jesus, your failure is never final. Turn to your neighbor and say, your failure is never final. These are things I want you to write down. These are things I want you to remember. These are things I want to drill into your head today, because the enemy will constantly remind you about your failure. And this scripture just lets us know that your future is more important than your failure. With God, your future is more important than your failure. Look at me. You're going to mess up. What do you do when you've messed up? What do you do when it's Friday? Today is Friday. And maybe it's Friday in your life. Simon Peter's life, it's Friday. He's failed, he's made a mistake. He's in the shadows of Jesus' persecution. Said he was gonna stand and now he's hiding out, acting like you don't even know the man. What do you do when it's the worst day of your life? You realize that God can turn it. What the disciples to that point would have said is the worst day of their lives was actually the best day that anybody had ever seen, because it was on the worst day of humanity that Jesus Christ called neck deep down into humanity, went down into the darkest pit of hell, got the keys to death, hell, and the grave. Listen, on Satan's best day, he lost the keys to his own house. So why would you let him have the keys to your house? At some point, you got to realize the battle has already been fought.